चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत प्रसादा स्वाद्वन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्त संगान् कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्री चरणारविन्दम्. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 types of delicious food, that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master, Param Pujya Guruji. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kurume Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasanna Vadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantaye Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Vyasam Vasishthanaptaram Shakti पौत्रमकल्मषं पराशरात्मजं वन्दे शुकतातं तपोनिधिं व्यासाय विष्णुरूपाय व्यासरूपाय विष्णवे नमो वै ब्रह्मनिधये वासिष्ठाय नमो नमः अविकाराय शुद्धाय नित्याय परमात्मने सदैकरूपरूपाय विष्णवे सर्वजिष्णवे यस्य स्मरणमात्रेण जन्म संसारबन्धनात् विमुच्यते नमस्तस्मै विष्णवे प्रभविष्णवे शान्ताकारं भुजगशयनं पद्मनाभं सुरेशं विश्वाधारं गगनसदृशं मेघवर्णं शुभांगं लक्ष्मीकान्तं कमलनयनं योगिहृद्ध्यानगम्यं वन्दे विष्णुं भवभयहरं सर्वलोकैकनाथम् ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम श्री कृष्ण परमात्मने नमः. राम रामाय शान्तारामाय सद्गुरु रामाय शान्तारामाय दय गुरु रामाय शान्तारामाय जय गुरु रामाय शांतारामाय राम राम. बोलो सद्गुरुनाथ महाराज की जय. बोलो राधा रानी अरुणामाई की जय. चरण स्पर्श to परम पूज्य गुरुजी. चरण स्पर्श to all devis and mahatmas. जय श्री कृष्ण गुरुजी. Discourse 26. The process of evolution of the Mahat Tattva and other fundamental principles. The Lord continued, now I shall tell you one by one the distinctive features of the different categories, by knowing which a man is freed once for all from the yoke of the modes of Prakriti. I shall also explain to you the nature of knowledge in the form of self-realization, which, by cutting the knot of egotism existing in the heart, leads the jiva to final beatitude, so declare the wise. Verse number 3. The Purusha is no other than the spirit, who is beginningless, devoid of attributes, existing beyond Prakriti or matter, revealed in the heart of all beings, and self-effulgent, nay, pervaded by whom the universe presents itself to our view. Verse 4. This all-pervading Purusha accepted of his own free will the unmanifest divine Prakriti, consisting of the 3 gunas that sought him in her playful mood. Verse 5. Already abiding in Prakriti, the Purusha fell a prey to her charms that obscure knowledge and forgot himself the moment he saw her evolving through her gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, progeny of various kinds with forms conforming to either of the three gunas. By identifying himself with Prakriti, who is other than himself, the Purusha attributes the doership of actions which are being performed by the gunas of Prakriti to himself. Verse 7. It is this feeling of doership which binds him to actions, although really speaking, he is a mere witness and therefore a non-doer. And it is this bondage through action which makes him helpless in the matter of pleasurable and painful experiences, although he is independent in reality, and subjects him to repeated births and deaths, even though he is blissful by nature. It says it is this bondage through action which makes him helpless in the matter of pleasurable and painful experiences, although he is independent in reality, and subjects him to repeated births and deaths, even though he is blissful by nature. Verse 8. As for the experience of pleasure and pain, they hold the Purusha, identifying himself with Prakriti, to be responsible, although as a matter of fact, he is beyond Prakriti. Devahuti said, verse 9, kindly also tell me, O Supreme Person, the characteristics of Prakriti and Purusha, the two causes of this universe, which in its gross and subtle forms is nothing but a manifestation of these. Verse 10, the Lord resumed, the wise speak of Pradhana or primordial matter as Prakriti. The Pradhana, which consists of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas, nay, which is unmanifest and eternal and exists both as cause and effect, and which, though undifferentiated in its causal state, is the source of distinct categories such as Mahat Tattva and so on. Verse 11, the aggregate of 24 categories, that is, the 5 gross elements, the 5 subtle elements, the 4 internal senses, the 5 senses of perception and 5 organs of action, is known to be an evolute of the Pradhana. The gross elements, verse number 12, the gross elements are only 5. That is earth, water, fire, air and ether. The number of the subtle elements too is in my opinion just the same. They are smell, taste, color, touch and sound. Verse 13. The Indriyas, the sense of perception and organs of action, are 10 in number. That is, the auditory sense, the tactile sense, the sense of sight, the sense of taste, the olfactory sense, the organ of speech, the hands, the feet, the organ of generation and the organ of defecation, which is said to be the 10th. Verse 14, the internal sense is seen to have 4 aspects in the shape of mind, understanding, ego, and reason. Their distinction lies in the functions which represent their characteristics. Verse 15, the disposition of the conditioned Parabrahman, that is Parabrahman manifested through the gunas of Prakriti, has been recognized by the knowers of truth as consisting of the 24 principles just enumerated by me and no other. Kala, time being the 25th. Some people speak of Kala as a potency, destructive power of the Purusha, God, which causes fear to the doer or the individual soul who has come to associate himself with Prakriti and is deluded by egotism arising out of self identification with body, etc. Verse 17. As a matter of fact, O daughter of Swayambhuva Manu, the Lord Himself who activates Prakriti, which is only another name for the equilibrium of the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, and which in that state admits of no particular name or form, is designated as Kala or time. Verse 18. In this way, the Lord Himself, who by His own Maya or wonderful divine energy abides unaffected within all living beings as the Purusha, their inner controller, and outside them as Kala, is the 25th category.
Yeah.
Verse 19. When the Supreme Person placed his energy in the form of Chit Shakti, or the power of intelligence in his own Maya, the source of all created beings, the equilibrium of whose gunas had been disturbed by the destiny of the various jivas, the Maya gave birth to the Mahat Tattva, the principle of cosmic intelligence, which is full of light. Verse 20. The Mahat Tattva, which knew no languor or distraction, etc., and represented the shoot of the tree of the universe, drank off by its own effulgence the thick gloom prevailing at the time of universal dissolution, which had once swallowed the Mahat Tattva in order to manifest the universe which lay in it in a subtle form.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah.
Verse 21. Chitta, the faculty of reason, which abounds in the quality of sattva, is pure and free from passion, and is the place where one can realize God, is spoken of as the Mahat Tattva, and is also called by the name of Vasudeva, because it is through the cosmic Chitta that they worship Vasudeva, the foremost of the Lord's four forms. Just as water in its natural state, when it is free from foam and ripples, etc., before its coming into contact with earth, etc., is clear as crystal, sweet and unruffled, even so, transparency, freedom from languor and distraction, etc., and serenity are predicated of chitta or reason as its characteristic traits. Verse 23 to 24. From the Mahat Tattva evolved the Lord's own energy in the form of Chit Shakti, or the power of intelligence. As it underwent transformation, sprang up Ahankara, the ego, which is predominantly endowed with active power and is of three kinds: Satvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika. From these three types of Ahankara were severally evolved the mind, the Indriyas, the senses of perception, as well as the organs of action and the gross elements. Verse 25. This threefold Ahankara, the source of the gross elements, the Indriyas, and the mind, and hence identical with them because it is the cause which reproduces itself as the effect, is the same as symbolic of, is the same as or symbolic of the Purusha called Sankarshana, the second of the four forms of the Lord, whom the Vaishnavas speak of as no other than Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads. Verse 26. The Ahankara is characterized as a doer, when conceived in this form, when conceived in the form of deities presiding over the indriyas and the mind. An instrument in the form of indriyas and an effect in the form of gross elements. It is further characterized as serene, active or dull, according as it is sattvika, rajasika or tamasika. Verse 27. From the Vaikarika or Sattvika type of Ahankara, as it underwent transformation, was evolved the mind, whose thoughts and reflections gave rise to desire. Verse 28. It is mind which is known by the name or recognized as a symbol of Lord Aniruddha, the fourth of the four forms of the Lord, the supreme ruler of the Indriyas, who is possessed of a form swarthy as the blue lotus growing in autumn, and who is slowly won by the yogis. Verse 29. From the Rajasika ego, as it underwent transformation, sprang up the principle of buddhi or understanding, O virtuous lady. Ascertaining the nature of objects on their coming to view and helping the senses in their work of perceiving objects. These are the functions of buddhi, known by the name of Pradyumna, the third form of the Lord. Verse 30. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory and sleep are said to be the distinct characteristics of buddhi as determined by their functions. The footnote says Maharshi Patanjali too attributes the same functions to buddhi in his aphorisms on yoga. Verse 31. The senses of perception as well as the organs of action, both the types of indriyas too, are evolutes of the Tejasa or Rajasika ego alone, since the power of action belongs to prana, the vital air, and the power of perception inheres in buddhi, and both these, prana and buddhi, are evolutes of the Tejasa ego. Verse 32. From the Tamasika ego, as it underwent transformation, impelled by the Lord's energy or Chit Shakti, sprang up the principle of sound, and from the latter was evolved ether and auditory sense too, which catches sound. Verse 33. The knowers of truth define sound as that which conveys the idea of an object, not within sight, indicates the presence of a speaker screened from view, and constitutes the subtle form of ether. Even so, ether is characterized as that which affords room to living beings, gives rise to the notions of inside and outside, and is the abode of prana, the vital air, the indriyas, and the mind. Verse 35. From ether, which is an evolute of the principle of sound, as it underwent transformation under the impulse of time, sprang up the principle of touch, and thence the air as well as the tactile sense by which we perceive touch. Softness and hardness, and even so cold and heat, are the distinguishing attributes of touch, and it is further characterized as the subtle form of air. Verse 37. Even so, shaking the boughs of trees, etc., bringing together straws lying apart, having access everywhere, bearing particles of substances containing smell, etc., to the olfactory and other senses, and sound to the auditory sense, and giving strength and vitality to all the indriyas. These are the characteristic functions of air. Verse 38. From air, which is a product of the principle of touch, impelled by the destiny of the various jivas, was evolved the principle of color, and thence fire as well as the sense of sight, which enables us to perceive color. Verse 39. To appear in the same form as the material substance in which it inheres, to depend for its existence on the substance, to have the same spatial relation as the substance, and to constitute the essential nature of fire. These, O virtuous lady, are the functions of the principle of color. Verse 40. To give light, to cook and digest food, to destroy cold, to dry moisture, etc., to give rise to hunger and thirst, and to drink and eat through them. These are the functions of fire. Verse 41. From fire, which is an evolute of the principle of color, impelled by the destiny of the various jivas, proceeded the principle of taste, and thence water, as well as the sense of taste, which enables us to perceive taste. Verse 42. Taste, though one, sweet only, becomes manifold as astringent, sweet, bitter, pungent, sour, and salt due to contact with other substances. Verse 43. Even so, to wet substances, to bring about cohesion, to cause satisfaction, to maintain life, the footnote says, the Shruti too says, Apomaya prana, life depends on water. To refresh by slaking thirst, to soften things, to drive away heat, and to be in a state of incessant supply in wells, etc. These are the functions of water. Verse 44. From water, which is an evolute of the principle of taste, impelled by the destiny of the various jivas, proceeded the principle of smell, and thence earth, as well as the olfactory sense, which enables us to perceive odor alone. Verse 45. Smell, though one, becomes many as mixed, offensive, fragrant, mild, strong, acid, and so on, according to the proportion of connected substances. Verse 46. Even so, to give form through images, etc., to the concept of Brahma, Parabrahman, the infinite, to remain in position without any support other than water, etc., which are its causes, to hold water and other substances, to limit the unlimited space through walls of houses, etc., and to manifest the bodies as well as the distinctive qualities, sex, etc., of all living beings. These are the characteristic functions of earth.
Yeah.
Verse 47. The sense whose object of perception is sound, the distinctive characteristic of ether, is called the auditory sense. And that whose object of perception is touch, the distinctive characteristic of air, is known as the tactile sense. Verse 48. Even so, the sense whose object of perception is color, the distinctive characteristic of fire, is spoken of as the sense of sight. Again, that whose object of perception is taste, the distinctive characteristic of water, is known as the sense of taste. And finally, that whose object of perception is odor, the distinctive characteristic of earth, is called the olfactory sense. Since a cause exists in the effect as well, the characteristics of the former are observed in the latter. That is why the peculiarities of all the elements are found to exist in earth alone. Verse 50. When the Mahat Tattva, the ego, and the five gross elements, these seven stood disunited, Lord Narayana, the cause of the universe, entered them, taking with him time, the destiny of the various jivas and the gunas or modes of Prakriti. Verse 51. From these seven principles, roused into activity and united by the presence of the Lord, arose an unintelligent egg, from which appeared the well-known cosmic being. This egg, which is known by the name of Vishesha, is enveloped on all sides by belts of water, fire, air, ether, and ego, and the Mahatattva, each 10 times larger than that which it encloses, and these six being enveloped by the outermost belt of Pradhana or primordial matter. All the 14 worlds, which are a manifestation of Sri Hari himself, are spread within this egg. Verse 53. Shaking off an attitude of indifference to that shining egg, which lay on the causal waters like cosmic being now, the cosmic being now presided over it and manifested the seats of the various indriyas out of it. First of all, appeared in him a mouth, and thence came forth the organ of speech, and along with it the god of fire, the deity presiding over the organ of speech. Then appeared a pair of nostrils, and in them the olfactory sense, along with prana, the vital air. Verse 55. In the wake of the olfactory sense came the wind god, the god presiding over that sense, and thereafter appeared in him a pair of eyes, and in them the sense of sight. In the wake of the sense came the sun god, the god presiding over the same, and next appeared in him a pair of ears, and in them the auditory sense, and in the wake of it the Devatas, the deities presiding over the latter. They appeared in the cosmic being, the skin, and thereon the hair on the body as well as on the head, a pair of moustaches and a beard. In the wake of these came the herbs and annual plants, the deities presiding over the hair, which represent the sense abiding in the skin. And then appeared in him an organ of generation. In the latter appeared the faculty of procreation, and thereafter that god presiding over the waters. Next appeared in him an anus, and in the wake of it the organ of defecation, and thereafter came the god of death, the terror of the world. Verse 58. Then sprouted forth in him a pair of hands, and in them the capacity of grasping and dropping things, and thereafter came the god Indra, the deity presiding over the hands. Next shot forth in him a pair of feet, and in them appeared the power of locomotion, and thereafter appeared Lord Vishnu, the deity presiding over that power. Verse 59. Next appeared in him the blood vessels, and thereafter came forth blood, the power of circulation. In the wake of it came the rivers, the deities presiding over the blood vessels, and then appeared an abdomen. Next grew therein a feeling of hunger and thirst, and in their wake came the ocean, the deity presiding over the abdomen. Then appeared in him a heart, and in the wake of the heart a mind. After the mind appeared the moon, the deity presiding over the mind, as well as buddhi, the faculty of understanding. And in the wake of buddhi came Brahma, the lord of speech, and the deity presiding over buddhi. Next appeared in him the ego, and thereafter Lord Rudra, the deity presiding over the ego. And last of all appeared in him Chitta, a reason, Chitta or reason, and then the Kshetrajna, the inner controller, the deity presiding over reason.
And then
Verse 62. When all the aforesaid deities, with the exception of the inner controller, though active, were unable to rouse the cosmic being into activity, They re-entered each his own seat in order to rouse him one by one. The god of fire entered his mouth along with the organ of speech, but the cosmic being could not be roused even then. The wind god entered his nostrils along with the olfactory sense, but the cosmic being refused to wake up even then. Verse 64. The sun god entered his eyes along with the sense of sight, but the cosmic being failed to get up even then. The Dig Devatas entered his ears along with the auditory sense, but the cosmic being could not be stirred into activity even then. The herbs and animal plants, the deities presiding over the skin, entered the skin along with the hair on the body, but the cosmic being refused to get up even then. The god presiding over the waters entered his organ of generation along with the faculty of procreation, but the cosmic being would not rise even then. The god of death entered his anus along with the organ of defecation, but the cosmic being could not be spurred into activity even then. The god Indra entered the hands along with their power of grasping and dropping things, but the cosmic being would not get up even then. Verse 67. Lord Vishnu entered his feet along with the faculty of locomotion, but the cosmic being refused to stand up even then. The rivers entered his blood vessels along with blood, the power of circulation, but the cosmic being could not be made to stir even then. The ocean entered his abdomen along with hunger and thirst, but the cosmic being refused to rise even then. The moon god entered the heart along with the mind, but the cosmic being would not be roused yet. Brahma too entered the heart along with the reason buddhi, but even then the cosmic being could not be prevailed upon to get up. Lord Rudra also entered the heart along with the ego, but even then the cosmic being could not be made to rise. When, however, the inner controller, the deity presiding over Chitta, reason, entered the heart along with reason, that very moment the cosmic being rose from the causal waters. Even as prana, the vital air, indriyas, the senses of perception as well as the organs of action, the mind as well as the understanding, are unable to awaken an embodied soul who is fast asleep by their own power without the presence of the inner control. Similarly, they could not do so in the case of the cosmic being. Therefore, through devotion, dispassion, and spiritual wisdom acquired through a concentrated mind, one should contemplate on that inner controller as present in this very body, though apart from it. Thus, hence the 26th discourse forming part of the teaching of Lord Kapila on the nature of the fundamental principles in Book 3 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahamsa Samhita.
Good for us to read it.
Yes.
Again and again, at least 2 times, so that we come to know what we have missed, or the powers, their powers.
Yes. Discourse 27.
Yeah.
How to attain liberation through the differentiation of matter and spirit.
Yeah.
The Lord continued, just as the sun, though seen reflected in water, remains unaffected by the attributes of water, such as coolness, unsteadiness, and so on, so the spirit, though abiding in a material body, remains unaffected by its pleasurable and painful experiences, being devoid of attributes and doership, and therefore free from change.
Very good, very good. So we have to become spirit and forget the body. Yeah.
Verse number 2. When, however, he gets attached to the gunas or modes of Prakriti, he begins to look upon himself as a doer, being completely deluded by egotism. Verse number 3. Due to this sense of doership, he loses his peace of mind through evils attaching to action in the shape of virtue and sin, and brought about by association with matter, and helplessly thrown into wombs of good, evil, and mixed types, has to undergo repeated births and deaths.
So we got this knowledge now from this, and we can come out of it now. And if we wait and if we do tomorrow another thing like that, it's gone, finished. It is punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jatre shayanam. That thing, yeah. Over to you. Most important, here it is. Most important, yeah.
Verse 4. Just as a dreaming man experiences sorrow even though there's no real cause for it, because he takes the things seen in a dream to be real, even so for the man who dwells on the objects of senses, the round of births and deaths does not cease, even though these objects do not exist in reality.
Yeah. Most important, yeah.
Verse 5. Therefore, through concentrated practice of devotion as well as through dispassion, one should gradually bring under control one's mind addicted to the pursuit of sense objects.
Yeah.
Verse 6. Practicing concentration of mind through yama, self-control in the form of non-violence, etc., and other parts of yoga with reverence, he who has realized the self as distinct from Prakriti by means of sincere devotion to me and by listening to my stories, by even-mindedness towards all beings, an absence of enmity or attachment to any, by practicing continence and observing a vow of silence, and by devotion to one's own duty in a spirit of dedication to God, who remains contented with whatever is got by chance as a dispensation of providence, and takes food in a measured quantity, is ever given to contemplation, lives in seclusion, and is calm and composed, friendly to all, compassionate and self-possessed. Nay, by virtue of wisdom acquired through the perception of reality of both matter and spirit, he who ceases to identify himself with his body and to regard those connected with it as his own, who transcends the three states of consciousness, that is, waking, dream, and deep sleep, and therefore no longer sees anything else than God. Such a man is able to perceive his true self with his purified intellect, even as one sees the sun with his eyes, and forthwith attains to that Parabrahman who is one without a second, who is free from all adjuncts such as body, who shines as the only reality through the false ego, who is the foundation of Prakriti, the material cause of the universe, nay, who reveals the Mahat Tattva and other evolutes and interpenetrates everything, both cause and effect.
Yeah. This whole line is full of knowledge.
Should I repeat it?
Yeah.
So, verse number 6 to 11.
Yeah.
Practicing concentration of mind through yama, self-control in the form of non-violence, etc., and other parts of yoga with reverence, he who has realized the self as distinct from Prakriti by means of sincere devotion to me, listening to my stories, by even mindedness towards all beings, and absence of enmity or attachment to any, by practicing continence and observing a vow of silence, and by devotion to one's duty in a spirit of dedication to God, who remains contented with whatever is got by chance as a dispensation of providence and takes food in a measured quantity, is ever given to contemplation, lives in seclusion, and is calm and composed, friendly to all, compassionate and self-possessed, nay, by virtue of wisdom acquired through the perception of reality of both matter and spirit, he who ceases to identify himself with his body and to regard those connected with it as his own, who transcends the three states of consciousness, waking, dream, and deep sleep, and therefore no longer sees anything else than God, such a man is able to perceive the true self with his purified intellect, even as one sees the sun with even one sees the sun with his eyes, and forthwith attains to that Para Brahman who is one without a second, who is free from all adjuncts such as body, who shines as the only reality through the false ego, who is the foundation of Prakriti, the material cause of the universe, nay, who reveals the Mahat Tattva and other evolutes and interpenetrates everything, both cause and effect.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Verse 12. Just as a reflection of the sun in water, existing in a pot in a corner of some house, is discovered by the inmates of the house with the help of a reflection of that reflection on a wall of the house, and the sun in the heavens can be seen with the help of its own reflection in water. Even so, the threefold Sattvika, Rajasika, and Tamasika ego, which reflects the spirit, is revealed through its reflections on the body, the indriyas, and the mind, and through the ego, which contains a reflection of the spirit, is seen God, who is possessed of true wisdom, who is absolutely free from egotism, and keeps awake even when the subtle elements in the shape of sound, etc., the indriyas, the mind and the intellect, etc., get merged in the unmanifest or primordial matter on account of sleep during the state of deep slumber. Verse 15. Although in waking life the existence of the self can be vividly felt as the seer of objects of perception, such as sound, etc., he falsely takes himself as lost, though not lost, because of the disappearance of the ego, which forms its adjunct during the state of deep sleep, just as a man who has lost his fortune feels distressed and takes himself as lost. Pondering thus, a man of understanding realizes his own self, who is the substratum and revealer of all fundamental principles, including the ego.
That sentence is the last sentence of that 12 to 14.
Yes, Guruji.
On account of the sleep, yeah.
Although in waking life, the existence of the self can be vividly felt as the seer of objects of perception such as sound, etc., he falsely takes himself as lost, although not lost, because of the disappearance of the ego, which forms its adjunct during the state of deep sleep. Just as a man who has lost his fortune feels distressed and takes himself as lost.
Yeah.
Verse 17. Devahuti said, matter, O divine sage, can never leave the spirit, the two being interdependent and co-eternal, O Lord.
Yeah.
Just as odor and earth, and similarly taste and water, can never exist apart, so can buddhi or understanding, which is an evolute of matter, and the spirit never remain disassociated from each other. Hence, how can there be any freedom for the soul so long as the gunas or modes of prakriti continue to exist? Gunas that bind the soul, who is a non-doer, to actions. Even if the great fear of such bondage is averted through an inquiry into the nature of fundamental principles in any particular case, the same may appear again, since the cause of it in the shape of the aforesaid gunas has not ceased. Verse 21, the Lord replied, assailed day and night by intense devotion to me, developed by hearing my stories for a long time, with a heart purified by doing one's duty in a disinterested spirit, by spiritual enlightenment, which enables one to perceive the truth, by strong dispassion, by practice of meditation accompanied by sacred vows and religious observances, and by thorough concentration of the mind, Prakriti, which binds the soul, gradually withdraws. Even as the wooden stick used for kindling the sacred fire, by attrition, is consumed by the very fire it produces. Ever recognized to be a source of evil and abandoned after enjoyment, she no longer does any harm to the soul, who stands supreme in his glory or blissful nature and is now absolutely independent. Verse 25 to 26. Just as the dream of a sleeping man is fraught with many evils, but the same does not conduce to his infatuation once he is awake, so Prakriti can never do any harm to him who, having realized the truth, ever keeps his mind fixed on me, and who consequently delights in his own self. Verse 27. When a man who is given to contemplation remains absorbed, as aforesaid, in meditation on the self for a period extending over many births, he develops a distaste for everything as far as the enjoyments of Brahmaloka, the highest heaven, the abode of Brahma. Verse 28. Having realized the self by my abundant grace, that strong-minded devotee of mine has all his doubts resolved by self-vision, and when freed from his astral body, easily attains in that very life the supremely blissful state known by the name of final beatitude, which is his essential character and rests on me, and having attained which a yogi never returns to the cycle of birth and death.
Yeah.
Verse 30. If the mind of the accomplished yogi, O beloved mother, does not get attached to the 8 kinds of superhuman powers, such as the faculty of reducing one's body to the size of an atom and so on, which are products of Maya, developed through yoga, which is the only means of acquiring him, he is sure to attain my immortal state where death has no power. Thus ends the sixth discourse, forming part of the story of Lord Kapila in Book 3 of the great and glorious Bhagavata Purana, otherwise known as the Paramahamsa Samhita. Discourse 28. The process of the eightfold yoga. The Lord continued, "Now I shall tell you, O princess, the character of yoga or meditation with some object to rest on, by practicing which and in no other way the mind gets purified and takes to the path of God."
Yeah.
Verse 2. To do one's allotted duty to the best of one's ability and to shrink from prohibited acts, to remain contented with whatever is got as a dispensation of providence, to adore the feet of one who has realized the self, and to cease from duties connected with the pursuit of religious merit, worldly possessions, and sensuous enjoyment. Even so, to take delight in duties tending to final beatitude, to take pure food in a measured quantity, to dwell permanently in a place which is not only secluded but also free from molestation, to practice non-violence in thought, word, and deed, to speak the truth, to abstain from thieving, to limit one's possessions to the extent of one's barest needs, to abstain from sexual commerce, to practice austere penance, to observe purity of body and mind, to study the Vedas and other sacred texts, to worship the deity, to observe silence, to acquire steadiness by firmness in the very best postures, to control one's breath by slow degrees, to withdraw one's senses from their objects, direct them towards the heart with the help of the mind, to fix one's mind as well as the vital air on any mystical circle in one's body, to contemplate without break on the pastimes of Lord Vishnu, and thereby to compose one's mind by these and other such methods. Example, observing fasts, bestowing gifts, and so on. One should diligently control one's breath and then gradually curb one's wicked mind, addicted to evil ways, with the help of one's reason, and apply it to contemplation on God.
Needs to be read again and again. Yeah. Over to you.
Koti Koti pranams to you, Param Pujya Guruji, Devis and Mahatmas. Let us read these again and come back for more. We'll go to Kritagnyata Prarthana now.
प्रार्थना करते हैं देश और धर्म के लिए, प्रार्थना करते हैं भारत की स्त्रियों के लिए और उनके विकास के लिए, प्रार्थना करते हैं हमारे अन्नदाता किसानों के लिए तथा उन सभी के लिए जिनके श्रम से हमारे पात्र में प्रसाद आता है। ये प्रसाद जो हमें 3 से 5 बार मिलता है, भूख हो न हो तो भी मिल जाता है, इससे हमारा बौद्धिक, शारीरिक और मानसिक पोषण हो। हम निरहंकारी बने, दूसरों के बारे में सोचें और हमारे में क्षमा भाव जगे। इसी के साथ प्रार्थना करते हैं भारत के तथा विश्व भर में कई ऐसे लोगों के लिए जिनको शायद 2 वक्त का प्रसाद मिले ना मिले पता नहीं होता। उनकी सारी आवश्यकताओं की पूर्ति हो, उनका विकास हो और उनके विकास से देश और विश्व का विकास हो। प्रार्थना करते हैं भारत के 17 से 21 वर्ष की आयु के सभी युवक और युवतियों के लिए नीति द्वारा यह अनिवार्य किया जाए कि उनको सेना में प्रशिक्षण मिले, जिससे कि वो अच्छे नागरिक बने। प्रार्थना करते हैं भारत के सेना बल के लिए सीमाएं बंद हो, घुसपैठ न हो, आतंकवाद न हो और हमारे जवानों के प्राण व्यर्थ में न जाएं। उनका आर्थिक और पारिवारिक जीवन हर्ष, उल्लास और विकास से भरपूर रहे। प्रार्थना करते हैं हमारे पुलिस बल के लिए नीति द्वारा उनके वेतन 10 गुना बढ़ाए जाए, उनकी जैविक अवस्था में सुधार लाया जाए, उनकी क्षमताओं में बढ़ोतरी लाई जाए और वो सदैव न्याय और धर्म का संस्थापन करते रहें। प्रार्थना करते हैं हमारे परम पूज्य गुरुजी द्वारा संकल्पित सारे कार्यों के लिए। ये सारे ही संकल्प जैसे निवृत्ति, गुरुकुल, गीता वितरण इत्यादि का उद्देश्य है, भारत के कई करोड़ों अच्छे गरीबों को लाभ पहुंचाना, ये सारे ही संकल्प बड़े से बड़े पैमाने पर साकार हो और इसका लाभ देश के कोने कोने तक पहुंचे। प्रार्थना करते हैं कि इस देश के शासक इस देश को उसकी खोई हुई संस्कृति की ओर ले जा सके। प्रार्थना करते हैं कि इस देश के हर जिले में कम से कम 2001 एकड़ के फैलाव वाले महाजलाशय बनाए जाए, जिससे कि वहां भरपूर जल रहे। प्रार्थना करते हैं कि इस देश के हर जिले में कम से कम 200 सौर शक्ति से संचालित ट्रामें चलाई जाए। इनके माध्यम से हर एक गांव को जिला मुख्यालय से जोड़ा जाए, जिससे कि यातायात में सुविधा हो, पर्यावरण भी स्वच्छ रहे और व्यय भी कम हो। प्रार्थना करते हैं कि ईश्वर हमारे परम पूज्य गुरुजी को 120 वर्ष का स्वास्थ्य से परिपूर्ण आयुष दें और गुरुजी सदैव हमारा मार्गदर्शन करते रहें। प्रार्थना करते हैं कि ईश्वर सभी सत्संगियों को, सभी विभूतियों को और उनके परिवारजनों को स्वास्थ्य से परिपूर्ण लंबी आयुष दे और सभी गुरुजी द्वारा दिखाए गए पथ पर चलें। सारा श्रेय गुरुजी को जाता है। आज का जो भी पुण्य है उनके श्री चरणों में समर्पित करते हुए देश और धर्म के लिए प्रार्थना करते हैं। तथास्तु, तथास्तु, तथास्तु।
प्रार्थना करते हैं देश के प्रत्येक विद्यालयों एवं संस्थानों में दिन में 3 बार संपूर्ण वंदे मातरम गाया जाए, जिससे कि नागरिकों में देशभक्ति की भावना जागृत हो। तथास्तु। ओम पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ओम शांति शांति शांति। वंदे मातरम। भारत माता की जय। जय हिंद। जय